Hello everyone. So today we will be knowing about React.js. So this is the first session for React's learning series, and in this series we'll be learning about React.js from the basics to very advanced level. Okay. In this first session we will be learning about what is React, the features of React.js, why React.js came into picture, what are the benefits and drawbacks of React.js, also how React.js is different from traditional HTML JavaScript, then how we can set up a React.js application, and we'll be creating a very simple minimal React.js application. So to start with, React.js, the name has been very popular. Wherever you go, you will hear this particular framework or library's name. So this technology has been very groundbreaking, as this has made the engineer's life as well as the user experience for the users very advanced and far better than it used to be. So that's why React.js has been a phenomenal new state of the art thing in front end industry, right? So let us know about what is React.js. So as I have here, right, React.js is a declarative, efficient, flexible JavaScript library for building reusable UI components. So, what do we mean by declarative? So, React.js is a language where, by using existing JavaScript knowledge along with HTML and learning some new extra syntactical juice for that particular framework like JSX or say for example modules, all those things, you can devise a new kind of UI framework. Okay, so the platform will be built upon React.js and it will be declarative. That means you will be declaring all those things by yourself in a very opinionated manner. Like, so it is not very like fixated route or something like that. Rather, it's a very flexible way. You can declare your components or your UI platform, right? So React.js gives you a flexibility which many other frameworks doesn't give you, because React.js has a very opinionated culture. So some person might build a particular component in a way, another person will be doing that in separate way altogether. So that's why it's declarative and efficient. Obviously, yes, that was the question why when React.js came into picture. So front-end libraries was not upgrading that much, right? Like HTML, JS, jQuery, all those things were there. Then Ember.js came and other Angular one came, like those. But there were still some efficiency problems, as well as like the front-end part is ready, but there was no scope for server-side rendering and all those stuff. And then React.js came into picture. So definitely it's very efficient in creating a beautiful and fast and smooth user experience. Okay, now it helps us to build reusable UI components. Okay, so reusable UI components means, say for example, you create a button, you add some styling to it, and you add some attributes to it which you can use via JavaScript. But the same button, if you want to use somewhere else, you cannot do. You have to write everything from scratch again. Maybe the CSS part you can reuse, because by using the class name or the ID, if it is in a different page. But otherwise it's just manual work, like you have to copy paste or you have to write it again. So there are no reusability factor in our traditional development. So that's why React.js came and it gave us this opportunity, or I would say like ability, to create reusable UI components where you can create the common components which will be used uh, like more often. You can create them as reusable components and you can just use them by using a just declaring those in a very small manner. You don't have to write everything at once. And also it makes the management for the code very easy, because you know you have kept it as a reusable component. So you, if you need to change the things all over, then you just need to change at one place. Also, if you need to change some specific thing for some specific place, for that also you need to change at one place only. and you don't have to worry about other places. So it is an open source library which is component based. So as you know, component is like the building blocks for any UI architecture. So just you might have gone through the session of HTML or CSS, right? So in that I have talked about the elements. So basically elements are the building blocks for HTML. Now elements are the smallest building block in HTML or DOM tree. Now in React it is component. So component can be consisting of different elements, but the root will be always one element. So that is why it is called component based and front end library. So again, some people calls it. Some people has this doubt like whether it is a library or framework. So to just clear that out, React.js is a library because when you call something framework is whenever that particular tech gives you everything under one roof. Like say for example AngularJS. AngularJS is a framework because Angular gives you everything on under one roof, like the routing engine, like the state management system, like the directives, like the services. All those things are there inside one roof. So Angular, you use AngularJS means you have everything there. But React.js is not that. React.js is very flexible in nature, and this is only used for UI. Okay, this is a UI library, and if you need any routing mechanism or directives or state management systems, then you need to use some different things, different libraries. Like for routing you can use React Router, for state management you can use Redux. All those things are there. Okay, so that's why React.js is a library. Now, it was initially developed as an internal platform by Facebook, but later they made it open source, and right now it is being used in WhatsApp, Instagram, all those things. Okay, now let's understand the features of React.js. So features means what are the things that that made React.js the kind of popularity it has, right? So what are the things that made it this much popular? So here are some of those things. So first thing is virtual DOM. So what is virtual DOM? So this is one of the most primary things that React developers created. So what happens is you know already in a document, right, in a website, say for example. So we have a, say for example, I have this particular React's official website. So the DOM structure is like this, right? If you see, so this is the DOM we have. Now whenever there is any update in this DOM, right? So say for example, on click of this button some text changes here. So that particular update directly interacts with the DOM. So that means whenever I click on this, if I have normal vanilla JavaScript or jQuery, that will directly mutate or update this particular element. So because of that, maybe sometimes what happens is if we are updating a lot of elements altogether, like a list or something like that, so what happens is when you update it, then you end up updating everything, right? So the updation that happens through vanilla JavaScript or jQuery, those things are very cost very expensive per se, as from the performance point of view, because what happens is when you change a lot of stuff on the UI becomes very laggy or soggy like that. So you might have seen or faced this kind of issue, right? Sometimes the UI becomes very buggy or laggy. So that happens because a lot of updates are being happened on the UI. Like sometimes you might say, like you visit some website, that website has a lot of ads, right? So that time you face a very slow experience. So that is because of that, like a lot of UI elements or components are being changed at a time, and they are not very efficient in nature, the changes. Okay, so that was a problem that we are facing with the traditional UI system. So when the React.js came into picture, so what they have done is, before even interacting with the actual DOM tree, which is this particular DOM tree, document object model tree, so they had created a replica of this particular thing. Okay, so that is called virtual DOM. So before even interacting with this guy, say for example, the same example if I take, right, if I click on this guy changes. So before even changing it on this ground, what it will do is it will first check with the virtual DOM tree that it has, which it has replicated from this one only, actual one only, and it will check how many places the changes are being reflected and what are the places are unnecessary to be re-rendered for this change. Then it will just create a difference between them, like how many places are actually needs to be changed, and it will just do the necessary thing there. That's all. So that's why DOM is not directly changed or updated, rather the virtual DOM is checked first and then only the actual DOM being changed. So that's why the efficiency becomes order of 1. So it doesn't become a loop or anything, rather it becomes very efficient. Okay. Now we'll talk about, so we'll just read about it, like with every modification in the web application, the virtual DOM re-renders the entire user interface. But the difference are only updated. Now JSX syntax. Okay. So JSX stands for JavaScript XML. Okay. It's a markup syntax, like you wrote HTML. Similarly, JSX is similar to HTML. But how it is used? It is directly used inside JavaScript. So that is the only difference. So right now when you see any page, right, so you see HTML is there and inside script tag there is JavaScript. But right with JSX it became very it became reverse. So you have the JavaScript code and inside that you will have HTML code. So if I give you an example, like I have a this one here, right, component here. So if you check the JSX code here, it looks like this. So inside JavaScript only, inside a function only, we are returning some HTML. So this is called JSX. So because we have the syntax is exactly same as HTML, but we have some dynamic elements in there, like dynamic values we can add, or we can have variables as some attributes. All those things are there. Okay. So that's why JSX came into picture. Now another very important thing is, in React.js we have one-way data binding. So if you see in AngularJS or in other JavaScript frameworks, there are two-way data binding. Like, first of all, before even going into data binding, let's understand what is data binding. Okay. So say for example you have some text over here, and this text is dynamic. Say for example this text is coming from the JavaScript. So in the traditional way, what you will do is you will just have some ID for this particular text, and you will take it by document.getElementById, and then you will update the particular inner HTML. So because of that, what happens is whenever you need to update anything in here, you need to write that particular update query in your JS. But with modern web development frameworks, right, like React.js, what happens is we can create reactive variables which will ensure that whatever change are being made in that particular reactive variable, right, that will be reflected on the UI, and there is no need of UI updation, manual UI updation from our end. Okay. So that thing is called binding. So what happens is, in the JavaScript side we have some variable which is reactive. That means whenever any change happens to that variable, so it makes sure that the front end also reloads. Okay. But similar thing cannot be done in all the frameworks, but React has that. Like in React, if you create any state variable, so state means it's a reactive variable. So inside that variable, whenever the value is changing, means that will update the UI then and there. Okay, you do not have to manually go and update the UI by interacting with the element. It will, the reactive variable only ensure the updation in UI. Now the only thing is, like, there is another concept. This concept is called one-way binding, because JavaScript, from JavaScript to HTML, binding is happening. Like whenever changing is happening in JavaScript, then it is also being reflected in UI. But similar thing cannot be said vice versa. Like if HTML part changes there, like if say for example I click on this search and I write something, so this will not directly be gone there in the JavaScript part. So that's why React, in React basically it will not go. So that's why it is called, React is called one way binding only. But in Angular JS and all, we have something, Angular JS or Vue JS, we have something, some concept called model. So what happens is, whatever variable you add as a model to this input, right? So whenever you write something, then that particular thing gets updated in JS as well. And when you update in JS, that particular thing gets updated in here as well. Okay, so that is two-way binding. But unfortunately or fortunately, basically we don't have two-way binding in React, unfortunately, but that ensures efficiency because we have one-way binding only. Then then there is a thing called declarative UI. That is one of the properties that I have talked already. Like by using React.js, we can create really good, engaging user interfaces, because the flexibility and capability is a lot. Okay, and you can build almost anything using React.js. Okay, it can be the UI of smartwatch, or it can be an UI of a very big supercomputer. Okay, then we have the thing called component based architecture. So component based architecture in React.js is basically, it's like everything you write in React.js is component. So every small thing you write, like here, right? So this is a component in React, so which is a heading component. Then this guy is a component in React, that is a paragraph component. Then this button component, then this link component. So everything we create as separate components, and whenever we need it in a page, then we bring those up together and we create the particular page. So that's why React is all about components, and that's why we call it component based architecture, because it ensures maintainability as well as reusability. Okay. Now we'll talk about the benefits and drawbacks of React.js. So benefits, as I have already told you, benefits is, first thing is virtual DOM. So virtual DOM is responsible for React's performance and speed, as I have told earlier, right? So normally when you are updating something on the HTML part, right, that is being directly updated in here. So say for example something like this, right, header, which has a lot of elements as a child inside it. So if I change something inside here, that means all the things are being changed, right? Rather in React.js, what happens is, we have something called virtual DOM, which replicates the actual DOM, and whenever there is any change incoming, then the virtual DOM tells the actual DOM like how much changes are required. Say for example this particular thing is being changed, then the whole thing will not be changed, rather only the part where it is being changed. Okay, so that's why virtual DOM always increases the efficiency, and the same concept are being followed by other frameworks as well. Okay, so now let's talk about reusable components. Okay, so reusable components is, as I have told, like so whenever you create a UI, so in the traditional way, what happens is, you give a h1, then paragraph, then button, like that. Everything you write from the scratch. Like for each files, you write everything in the code, right? And you create new component, new elements. Like for this element, you give some styling, then another button also requires similar like that, then you create another button style. So what happens is, we are left with redundant code as well as unmanageable code, because same kind of stuff are there in the code base. That means what, you cannot, but those are written differently, that's why you cannot be able to change them at once, or you cannot manage them very easily or quickly. So that's why there came this architecture called reusable component architecture. So where what happens is, whatever component we feel like it can be used later, we just create a reusable component for them. So later when it is being used, then what happens is that particular component is used there. So but the HTML markup or code is not used, just the component declaration will be enough. Now, um, so because of this reusable reusable property of React, the UI designing and UI creation becomes very simple. Now, another thing is the community. So if I see GitHub React, so see. So in GitHub, you see React's public this thing has this many folks and stars, almost like 2 million. So the community is very strong because people have been using it from a long time. And the thing is, you see every like what every day there is some updates. Like here 19 hours ago some commit got merged, so that means you understand, right? So the community is very dedicated towards building React and they are always updating it. Okay, so that's why when you choose any kind of framework or platform or library for your particular project, so then this kind of things becomes very important because so if you pick something up which doesn't have enough community support, then if someday you get into some issue with the particular framework or library, then the chances of getting any fixes or some solutions becomes very high, sorry, very low, because you don't have that much community support. Also, a lot of, as it is written here, right, a lot of YouTube videos, tutorials and articles are there for React.js. Okay, so next point is SEO friendliness. This particular thing I really like because there can be there are different kinds of front end, and in that you might have heard something like single page application. So single page application is everything is there inside that page only, and inside, like, there is no reload happens for that particular project, and it is not search engine friendly. That means everything happens on the client side. That's why when search engine asks for a resource or a page, then it doesn't get it because it that particular resource requires front end to be running. Okay, so that is SEO friendliness. Now, ease of learning. So because React has been there for more than 10 years, so the learning aspect of it became very easy because we already have the great community, as well as there are multiple, like, there are many tutorials, then articles and all about React. Basically, the strong community support has helped us to ease the learning curve, basically. Okay, then there comes another point, that is React Native. So React Native is another framework, but I wanted to keep it here because so React Native also uses similar philosophy as React.js, just that there are some changes are there because it is a purely uh, mobile based like thing. So you can create applications by using React.js. So what happens is, inside that, the operating system level APIs are being exposed to React.js through a JavaScript engine. So that's how React Native is being able to create and manage applications of mobile smartphones. Okay, so so that's what, like, the basic strategy is same, like it is totally uh, common components, or user interfaces which are using multiple components. That kind of architecture is there. Finally, the written code can be reused in any platforms. Like, you write once and it can be used in Android, iOS and others. Okay, Then there comes one-way data flow that I was talking about before, right? So in React, they have ensured us that you cannot have the HTML to JavaScript wala data flow, because there have been multiple like issues with this particular paradigm, because some people believes in two-way binding, some people doesn't. So React doesn't believe in that, and React has given us another ways to cope with that, to handle form and all. But one-way data flow is basically, so from JavaScript only the data will travel towards HTML part. So that's what. Also another important point is React developer tools. Yes, so inside Chrome only we have something called React developer tools, so which is like this. So where if you click on that, if the website is made in React, then you will be able to see like what that particular website, how the components are being mm, this thing like how they are basically in a hierarchy, they are basically created and kept. Okay, so that's why. Okay. Now another thing is high compatibility. So React.js has been there from a long time, right? So that's why a lot of projects, people, and community has been using React.js, and because of its very genuine updates and features, and the developers are listening to the engineers basically when they are developing React.js. So this all reasons has transformed into a high compatibility state of React. So that means React can be used in a device, in a smartphone as we are using right now, also as well as any places like smart mirror, or some big so sports event, all those things, it can be done. Okay. And scalability. So React has a very modular design pattern, so everything in it are components, and components are basically small modules, and all those things are built in by keeping this thing in mind that we have to scale the particular project, right? So that's why scalability has never been issue with React, because it provides you such a well manageable platform as well as reusable platform. Now to quickly go over all the all the pros. So first thing is the virtual DOM, which clearly stands out. So second thing is reusable components, then community, then SEO friendliness, then ease of learning, then React developer tools, then some download data flow, like how data is being downloaded. Uh, then React Native is there, by using which you can create Android iOS applications. Then Redux is there. Redux is like basically state management software, state management library for React. Okay. Okay, so far we have talked about all the advantages of React.js. Now I would like to tell you about some of the drawbacks as well, because as you know, nothing in this world comes with only benefits. There will be definitely some cons to it. So React.js also unfortunately has some cons. So to start with that, so first thing is development pace. So React.js is very well known and it is very well accepted in the developer community, but as it is widely used, there are a lot of features that goes into it every while, right? So that's why new versions are coming. Like last year it was React 16, then right now it is React 18. So and in between many minor versions are releasing. So that's why what happens is there are a lot of new features that comes in, and there are a lot of things that gets deprecated. So that is ever evolving and changing. So that's why to keep pace with the change of Reacts, the developers has to always keep themselves updated and maintain the changes in their projects as well. So that's where the development pace, like to develop a project, there is a some kind of timeline that is needed, right? So this timeline or the pace of the development gets hampered a bit when there is a change in React's latest versions. So second thing is the lack of documentation. So there is a very good like React's own this thing, right, document out there. But only problem is this documentation doesn't get updated that frequently as the features are releasing, right? So there can be some features which are there available in React, but in the document the details for that features are not there. It is just one liner that is provided in the document. So if you go to documents, you will see all the features are there, like advanced guides and all are there. But if some new features are coming in here, right, so only a bit of that will be covered in here. Like here you see, right, it is a very small thing that is covered. Now to read about that, you need to check some other articles or some other content to understand fully about this particular thing. Now React.js own document is not sufficient for that, and there is also a lack of content in that. Okay. Another thing is non-vigilant focus on user interface. So if you see, so React.js is only, it is a library, as I have already told, right? Because it doesn't focus on a full-fledged thing. Rather, so if you consider a front end, then the front end is divided in model, view, and controller. So model being where the data is there, view being the exact UI layer, and controller being where the UI updations according to data happens. Now React.js only gives the view part, right? But unlike Angular, which provides the whole thing, so React JS on its own, it just provides the view wala part. So because of that, the focus is on user interface. That means when you are working on React.js, you are only working on the presentational bit of it, right? So you can only design the web page and all, and you can create some of the interactions. But to handle data and to handle some models, then you need to have some other libraries like React's own Redux for data handling. Then for routing, you need React Router, all those things. So React only focuses on UI, only the view part. Another thing is JSX. So JSX is created for React.js. No other library uses this particular syntax. So this is a templating syntax. So if you check any React code, you will see like inside the JavaScript only we are writing some HTML, and inside HTML also we are writing some dynamic JavaScript part. So this particular syntax is called JSX. Now the thing is, many people are not aware about JSX, right? So people are only aware, and they are very accustomed to normal HTML, or to an extent some templating engines like handlebars or EJS, all those things. But this particular thing, JSX is very different from those things, and it has a very mix match thing, right? So you have HTML and JavaScript like mixed up all together. So that's why this thing sometimes becomes very hard to understand, and to maintain also. So everything you keep under the same thing, right? The JavaScript and the HTML part. So to maintain also, it becomes a bit tricky for people who comes from the background of like other frameworks like Angular or this one, uh, like Vue.js, all those things. Okay. Okay, so here is a wrap up of that. So lack of proper documentation, which I told already. So there is not that much good of documentation in there in the React's own official document. Then development speed. The speed of the development is not proper because it is always changing, and there is a lot of new features that are coming, and there are a lot of features which are getting deprecated as well. So that's why. And JSX I told. So JSX is there as in so JSX, the syntax is very new, and some people who are coming from other libraries, so they will face difficulties to understand JSX as well as to use it on the project as well, because JSX mixes and matches HTML and JS. So to maintain that also becomes a overhead. Then SEO problems. So React had problems with Google and indexing like previously, before Next.js and other server-side rendering part came into picture. But right now there is no such problems. But definitely with only React you cannot achieve server-side rendering, which ensures search engine optimization, right? So that's what. Now we'll talk about how React.js is different from HTML. So HTML, as you know, it has been there from a long time. Okay, and React.js just came into picture from like last 7-8 years back in 2013. So, but React.js is very much superior to HTML in terms of like creating a UI that is very well maintained and reusable in manner, so that when you are creating a big project, a huge project, then it always makes sense to create it using React.js, so that you can avoid the management overhead, as well as you can create reusable components, so that aram se you can integrate with other parts of the project. Okay. So what React.js has done is it has taken the advantages of HTML and it has strengthened it. Like in HTML, you could not, only using HTML, you could not make it a dynamic web page or something like that. But what React has done is it has introduced a new paradigm altogether, like JSX, and inside that it has maintained JavaScript and HTML's marriage. So that's how it has came to be very strong. Okay, and the difference between HTML and React is their purpose, obviously. So HTML is a markup language, hypertext markup language to be precise, uh, which is only used to design and develop web pages, and there is no, without any interactions. To do interactions or user updations, like user behavior tracking or user events tracking, all those things, you need to use some other library like jQuery and all. But React.js is like in that sense is fully like full-fledged in view part of the front end. Okay, so only if you use React.js, then you will be able to take the advantages of HTML, so the markup language, as well as the JavaScript part as well. Okay, on top of that, there are a lot of handy features in React.js, like looping or if or conditional blocks or loading, lazy loading, all those things which are not available in HTML. Okay, so we have got a very brief overview about React.js. Now what we will do is we will set up the system for React.js. So currently I have already set up my system. So that's why I'll just tell you how you can do the same. So first thing is you need to install Node.js and npm package manager, so that your system is ready for React development. After that, you have to install React, so that you can do by using npm install this one. Then after that, what you can do is go to any directory wherever you want to create a React application, and there you can write this particular command, npx create React app, and then your application name, whatever would be your application. Okay, so after starting that, after clicking that, it will create some project setup for you, and it will create the whole React app. Now here are some links which are provided, which are very good for getting you started, and as well as like these are the some tools which will help you developing React. Okay, so first thing is React developer tools, so which I was showing yesterday. Like if you have installed that in your browser, then you will be able to see the page as React. Like normally if you see the elements, it will be elements. Now you can see the hierarchy of the React components as well by using uh, this particular this thing extension. So you see all the components are there, like hierarchy one by one. So if I go to a particular part, then I'll be able to see what component is that. Okay, so that is what. So second thing is React Redux, GraphQL, React Native snippets for use VS Code. So if you are using VS Code code editor, so then it will be very handy, because you will have all the React snippets ready there. Okay, and there is a TypeScript React code snippets. Same thing. If you are using React with TypeScript, then you will get the snippets in there. Okay. Then there is another thing that is called like other React related documents, which you can see in React's own docs, right? So that thing you can check in there. And now I'll be just showing you like how you can create a very simple React application. So basically what I will show you is how you can show hello world in React. That's all. Okay, so to create the application, how to set up all those things, we'll see that in next session. But right now I'll just show you how a normal code in Java in JSX looks like to render a particular React.js component. So in HTML, if you want to write something like this, then that will be like, just you can keep HTML inside that h1 hello world, that's all. But if you want to do that same thing in React.js, then you have to have a HTML file. Only one HTML file will sufficient, because that is just like the container of the whole React project. And inside that you can keep like just a ID for that particular one particular div. Okay, and whatever will happen inside React for the whole application, everything will happen inside this. Okay, so this elements contents will be replaced with your component and React component. Okay, in the journey. So in after writing that part in a HTML file, then we have to write this particular thing in JavaScript, in basically JSX. So first thing is we have to take a root element. So this is the root element. So in the root element, what I am creating is so React DOM create root. So whenever there is an element in the HTML, so we are defining that as a root element for our React application, and inside that I am passing the reference for the element, so that what it does is it creates a React reference for this particular element, and whatever happens right after this, so everything happens inside this. So after that I have root, which is this particular element as a React's root. Then inside that what I am doing is root.render. So root.render means render some stuff inside this part. So inside that I am putting a JSX. So JSX is basically HTML only with some added advantages. So when we write just a static JSX, then there will not be any change, any major, any difference with HTML basically. So here we are just putting h1 tag, and inside that we are putting hello world, and that's it. It will show the application. So this is what our first session is. So here we didn't do any kind of coding. Rather, we have learnt about what is React and what are the benefits and drawbacks of it, and what are the features of React. Then how React.js is different from HTML, and also how can we set up the particular development environment for React.js. Right, and also you have seen a very small sample React hello world code in here. So now in the next sessions we'll be learning about how React works, and how the different APIs in React works. So that part we'll do by using live coding. So till then, bye bye. I hope it was helpful for you.